Which celebrity did you meet and found they were much kinda ruder than you expected? I met Gordon Ramsay once at a book signing event. I was just walking around the area and ran into him on his free time. He was actually so nice and down to earth. Talked about food for a few minutes and how he's liking his trip so far. Super nice guy and nothing like you see on his cooking shows. Saw Ryan Gosling at my brother's graduation. His mom was graduating with a master's degree from same school. Ryan sat in front of me. He clapped for every kid who got on stage to get their diploma. I was so tired from such a long ceremony that I almost didn't even clap for my brother. This is my time to shine. I won't go into too many details for privacy, but I was at an industry party where I happened to befriend a small group of people who I later found out were Ryan Gosling's posse. Ryan wasn't there and we just hung out and drank at the party all night and became friends. When the time came to leave, I offered them a ride to their hotel as I'm local and they were visiting, and they happily accepted. But when we got to my car, I saw I had a flat tire. I was horribly embarrassed, but they said not to worry about it and they would have their friend come pick them up. This was before Uber and Lyft became popular. So they're all drunk and Instagramming the scene while I'm on my hands and knees trying to change my flat tire when a black Cadillac Escalade rolls up and Ryan Gosling hopped out of the back and herded his drunk friends in the car. I thought that would be that, but he walked over to me and told me he was calling a tow company to take my car to a shop and get a new tire on, and thanked me for helping his friends. Said good luck buddy, and disappeared into the night like a ducking rock star hipster Jesus. Put the tow and the tire on his card. Needless to say, I think Ryan Gosling is a good guy. Brad Pitt is a top-notch guy in real life. I met him in Malta while he was filming Troy. I was guiding a group of students as a group leader on a holiday trip and we saw Pitt just walking out of a cafe. He took time to take lots of pictures with all the kids and was really nice to everyone. Among my group were a bunch of teenage girls who almost fainted. Hilarious day all around. Kinda Hugh Jackman. He's known for being nice, but I didn't expect him to be so genuine and actually keep the conversation going and to keep asking questions and showing interest. It must be exhausting considering how many people he meets every day, yet he is always on. Ruder Will Ferrell. He's known for being rude and mean, and I thought maybe it was exaggerated as people might expect him to be nice and funny and are disappointed when he's not. He was okay to me as in he didn't talk any shit, but I saw him being a complete and utter brick to others. I met Liam Hemsworth at a supermarket in a small coastal town in Australia earlier this year. I almost didn't even notice it was him as he fit in seamlessly, being the down-to-earth, laid-back Aussie guy he is. He was super nice and genuine and even made an effort to thank the employees and the store's security on his way out. He yelled at me for running out of his favorite tequila. He was pretty drunk, but whatever. Miley apologized and was super nice and down to earth. So was her sister Noah. David Beckham, not just a nice guy, but when his kids came to the secret event we were filming and some people spotted them, he came across and told the public who could see him that he'd do any photos or signings they liked, but to please leave his kids alone as they were not in the public eye and he wanted them to be afforded privacy. Good dad. Jamie Lee Curtis. We chatted about cameras for ages before I realized who she was, after we finished chatting. She had a very nice Leica. Skater Christine Lenka was an absolute diamond, playing with someone's kids on set between rehearsals. I fell a little bit in love watching her. Eartha Kitt, despite being mid-80s, she was doing 2 shows a day and would still use the show interval for a fun meet and greet. Then her rider was a salmon salad sandwich. A true star with true humility. I won't go on about the dickheads. They tend to be mid-famous on the way up. The bottom rung are just so happy to be entertaining. The top rung have nothing to prove. Chadwick Boseman, who I met while I was working as an extra. We weren't supposed to talk to the actors, but he struck up a conversation with me. Asked me how I was doing, told me I was doing a great job. He was a genuine, sweet person and an incredible talent. I also met Jeff Goldblum, who put my hand on his chest after I complimented his shirt and flirted with me for a few minutes. It was amazing. I've worked in a couple presenting theaters, as in, they don't produce their own shows, They hire traveling acts in the box office. The theater I worked at in college had Jerry Seinfeld, which sold out in 25 minutes. By the end of my shift, my cash out was $8,200 in cash alone, largest stack I've ever held. The staff had to have a special meeting before the event to discuss Seinfeld's rider, because his rider included a clause that no front of house staff were allowed backstage while he was in the building, so we couldn't use the backstage bathrooms or the break room. We were also contractual required to avert our eyes if we happened to run into him. Most stupid bullshit ever. Was at the Blue Lagoon in Iceland and someone floated by me that I recognized but couldn't put a name to. I kept stealing glances at him to try and figure out who he was. When I finally figured out it was Ryan Gosling, he must have seen the realization on my face, because he smiled at me, winked, and put his finger over his lips in a SHHHH gesture. I think no one else had recognized him. He had a full beard. Left him alone, as you do, but I'll always remember that wink. Robin Williams was shooting a film in my city. He stopped by the nearest senior home just to say hello and take pictures with the residents. No other reason than to brighten up their day. Class act of man. My grandma was a resident. I used to work in the music and film industry, as a grunt, when I was in my early 20s, so I've met a lot of celebrities. George Clooney was the nicest one, so down to earth, and would play practical jokes on the entire crew very regularly. He had these t-shirts made for every crew member to wear with the director's picture on the cover of People's Sexiest Man Alive, lol. This was not an attractive director, it was kind of a joke between them, I guess. He had his car drive people home if buses weren't on schedule or whatever. He'd eat lunch with the crew rather than in his trailer. I had the pleasure of working a show on a David Bowie tour he did in theaters. Every member of his band made a point to thank the crew members. IDK if Bowie himself did it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Chrissy Hind, The Pretenders, was also awesome and talked to everyone. Didn't act like she was even a celebrity in the least. The assholes I've met are too many to count, but some who I didn't expect to be jerks were Marilyn Manson. IDKY I didn't expect it, but the guy was a huge douchebag. Paul Simon was also kind of a big dick. Prince was a huge weirdo who wouldn't let anybody even look at him. Paris Hilton once asked to sit with me and some friends outside of a Jack in the Box when she was plastered. She threw up on my shoes. 3 days later I ran into her at a concert and she full force pushed me over. Her sister apologized, though. The sister was cool. Met Jason Momoa at a con a few years back when I only knew him from Game of Thrones. His positive energy and sense of humor is very disarming despite him being so big and imposing. I saw Bryan Cranston at the Space Needle, didn't ogle but made eye contact. He knew I recognized him, but I didn't say anything. Oddly later that same day saw him in a nearby bar he paid for around for my friend and I as he left. Pretty sure he appreciated not bothering him. Super nice. Daniel Radcliffe was genuinely nice. He actually asked us if we wanted a picture with him. Probably because he saw how starstruck we were considering the odds of running into such a world-renowned movie star in our city. John Cena wasn't kind or mean. The man was tired after a red-eye flight from LA to Tampa. I think he was more pissed that I could see him. Joking aside, I didn't want to bother him and he seemed relieved not to be assaulted by fans and paparazzi. Kristen Bell, it was through a Zoom meeting for Uzo Military collab. She was very kind and interested to hear and talk with servicewomen and the spouses. The only thing I didn't like about the whole thing was that someone asked her if she could sing and she said no. I think it was due to time constraints or something. So what happens? Someone wheels in their disabled child to ask Kristen to sing, so she obliged for the child. That was rude and dirty of them to do that. I worked at a bar in Hollywood and served lots of random celebrities. The best experience was Gwendoline Christie, Brienne of Tarth from GOT. She ordered a Guinness and handed me a $20. I went to get her change and she told me to keep it. She said she had worked in the service industry for years and knew how hard the job can be. She paid for each of her drinks the same way all night. She was incredibly kind and generous. Rare in Hollywood. By far the worst was a regular we had, Kevin Spacey. The guy was a total creep. He would bring in underage boys and try to convince us to serve them. I even kicked him out for cutting lines of coke on the bar top one random Sunday night. Met Elvis Presley in Las Vegas in August of 1972. I was in the Navy stationed at Point Mugu, California and drove to Vegas to see him live at the midnight show. I was in uniform alone and the maitre d' sat me in a single seat center stage 3 seats from the stage. During the performance Elvis called me out and thanked me for my service and asked me what my job was and I replied I was an air traffic controller at Point Mugu, California. He said, "Man, you have a stressful occupation for a young man." I told him I've waited all my life to see him in person and he thanked me and said enjoy the show. I was 23 at the time and was so blown away he called me out. Near the end of the show a man came up to me and asked me if I'd like to meet Elvis after the show and I replied, "Are you serious?" He said absolutely. He escorted me to backstage into a room and after a while Elvis appeared showered and hyped up after his show. He sat down next to me and talked about his army service and wanted to know where I was from and what I was going to do spend discharge, how I liked serving my country and what music I listened to, about my parents and my sisters. He was so down to earth and so polite. We spent 20 minutes or so just talking and he said he needed to get upstairs and try to unwind so he could sleep. I asked him for an autograph and he gave me one and a couple of autographed photos and Joe Esposito escorted me downstairs and I thanked him for his kindness and he told me Elvis enjoyed the beating more than me. I was so excited and it took me a month to come down off my buzz. He was absolutely so down to earth and really interested in what was going on in my life. I will remember this until the day I die. It was the most exciting thing I've ever experienced in my life. I have so much respect for him and was devastated in '77 when I heard he passed away. Maybe we will see each other on the other side. I hope. I don't think I've ever heard a bad story about Adam Sandler in person. By all accounts, he's one of the nicest guys out there. His career now is basically making, admittedly crappy, movies so he can hang out for weeks at a time with all of his friends. Honestly, sounds pretty awesome. I met Taylor Swift once. She invited random fans into her house. As I was getting my turn to meet Taylor and enter her house, someone came up and said, "PSSSST Taylor, there's no soap in the bathroom," and I swear to God this woman looked mortified. She was so embarrassed to be throwing a party and not have out any fresh soap for her guests. She apologized profusely and made steps to go fetch some from upstairs. Then someone stopped her and did it for her. It was a small moment, but it made me realize how humble she actually is. I kind of thought it was all a big act honestly. There was this other moment when she opened her fridge and was like, "Do you want anything?" and I was like, "Oh!" This huge celebrity just asked me if I want like a snack from her fridge? What's happening again? Small moment. But it was insane how normal she acted for her celebrity. Crazy. Matt Damon. He was ice skating at our small town lake. Seemed to be staying undercover fairly well as he didn't have a big crowd or anything. A friend and I helped his nephew when he fell and Matt came over and said thanks. Later saw him at the local pizza place. You would think someone like him would be a real jerk and all about himself, never wanting to come to a small town or anything. But he seems to be like a real nice normal guy. Update. Holy smokes, this is literally the most upvotes I have ever gotten by far. My previous best was like 5. Thanks all. Edit no. 2. Holy smokes. Almost 1000 upvotes and my first ever award. Thank you all and thanks to my secret friend who gave me an award. Posted this story a few years ago. I met Gordon Ramsay in Cape Town about 7 years ago. He was at the same bar as me. I recognized him almost instantly when I saw him and kinda freaked out but didn't want to miss the opportunity. I went up and said hello, half hoping he would call me a donut or put 2 slices of bread on my head, but he was really nice and asked me how I was. I told him I loved his shows and recipes, and he offered to buy me a drink. Overall really nice man, and his demeanor is very calming. Almost ASMR. I felt at ease. I hope he is doing well. first met Adam Sandler when I was super young at a Chinese restaurant in LA. He came in after my family was already eating, and my brother and me, being huge Adam Sandler fans, got up to go say hi to him. Super nice guy, didn't mind at all that a 10 and 17-year-old were bothering him during his dinner with his family. Somehow his family finished their meals before me and my family didn't. As he was getting ready to leave, he came back to our table, thanked us for the kind words, offered pictures and then left. Amazing experience. Another amazing experience was Stevie Wonder. He came in with his bodyguard to the restaurant I was an assistant manager at. I walked up and told him how much my mom loves him. My mom is one of the biggest Stevie Wonder fans ever. I had an employee who also was a huge fan and looked up to him and his music as she is a musician. I told him I was going to grab her so she can get a picture with him if he was okay with that, and he looks at me with a big frown and said, oh, she came up and said hi but that the manager said she couldn't take a picture with me. I told him duck that. I'm one of the managers, so if anyone gets in trouble, I'll take the blame. His face lit up and I got to take a selfie with Stevie Wonder and so did that employee. I met Ryan Reynolds before he became famous. I was in a stall in the ladies' room of a restaurant and someone came in and used the stall beside me who was definitely not female. As I was washing my hands, he came out of the stall and gave me a puzzled look. Then he got a look on his face of absolute horror and checked to find out he was, indeed, in the ladies' room. He apologized. I told him I wasn't going to report him or anything. Came back to the restaurant and scanned the place to see if I could find him. He wasn't famous back then, but he was still cute as duck. He spotted me looking for him and came over to chat. Very flirty and funny, we had a great conversation. 6 months later I started watching Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, and there he was. I'm glad he's enjoyed so much success. He deserves it. Johnny Depp is an absolute sweetheart. Worked as a stand-in for one of his films and they had me sitting in bleachers in the pouring rain while they did light measures and such. They brought out Johnny and he sat beside me to do blocking. They had an umbrella over him and he asked why they didn't have one for me. They shrugged and dismissed it, but Johnny took his umbrella and held it over us both and asked if I was warm enough. He was very kind. My buddy works in AV industry and has worked on a bunch of videos with Eminem. Says he is a very nice, quiet guy. He doesn't chat with people much, but mainly because he gets uncomfortable when people constantly say how great he is and how he inspired them, etc. Also says Mark Ruffalo is the greatest guy, hangs out with everyone on set. I've been an autograph collector forever and have interacted with tons of baseball, basketball and football players. Shaq is my favorite, but too many great interactions to name. Most are super nice, but keep in mind these people are so busy. They may want to sign but have to go to their next interview, workout, etc. Don't judge them based on one quick interaction where they said no to an autograph or picture. Bumped into Matthew McConaughey and his wife Camilla at the same hotel I was staying at. Dude was amazingly chill. We exchanged a few words and at the end, after asking me if I'm doing good, he responded with alright lol. Mike Tyson ran into him at a jewelry store in Vegas. He was super nice, signed an autograph, told me to follow my dreams. I was 6, then bit Hollifield's ear off less than a year later. I'll share my friend's story of Bill Murray famously not flashing out. My BFF is a lovely woman but not the most prone to conflict. This took place in the late 80s, so the heyday of SNL, Ghostbusters, Caddyshack, and she was a teen working at her brother's grocery. Murray's family has long had a house in the northwoods of Wisconsin, which most months is a tiny town, but in summer, tourism hits with outdoor enthusiasts. She was at the front cash register when Murray, in standard flannel and ball cap, presents a check from Carly, a driver's license from NY. OFC, it says William Murray, cuz legalities. She says, I can't take this check. He says, huh? I can't take this. Your check and license are from opposite ends of the country. No way. He chuckles and asks her to look at it again and takes off sunglasses. I've looked plenty, and I'm not taking it. More chuckles. This goes on for 5 minutes until another worker says take. the check? She again says no. More chuckles. Other worker rips them both out of her hands, tells him thanks and smiles. My BFF is outraged and pretty much loudly says how her brother will be livid when he gets back. Murray is belly laughing out the door. She isn't clued in until he leaves. Kind. Bill Clinton. It was during a presidential campaign stop. He took the time to notice to me, a quiet and shy 12-year-old girl, to ask me how I'm enjoying my day of playing hockey from school and sign a paper for me when I lost all of my words upon meeting him. Neutral. I literally ran into Bill Gates in the Indiana University Student Union. We each apologized at the same time, then we chuckled for interrupting each other's apology. Root. Local TV reporter personality who seemed like the friendly and father type guy on TV. I saw him in the local mall during the Christmas rush and as I walked past him I smiled and wished him a happy holiday season. He looked at me and said piss off. Alrighty then. This will get buried but I met and had lunch with Steve Irwin before he got famous. Up front I'll say, he and his wife were the nicest people. The guy I was dating at the time's parents lived next door to the Australia Zoo and knew him personally. He was looking for someone to paint a mural on the outside of the zoo's bathroom wall and he and his wife Terry met with me to look at my art. We ate meat pies and chatted. I had just moved to Oz from the US and so had Terry, so we talked about that experience. Afterward, he let us walk around the park and play with all the baby roos and wallabies. It was really awesome and I was super sad when he died. Lady Gaga. I worked as a Super Bowl field team member in Houston for Super Bowl 51. We helped build push the stage elements pieces onto the field for the halftime show. During our first rehearsal with her in the stadium, she entered through one of the tunnels and started to walk by myself and a friend. My friend instinctively threw her paws up as Lady Gaga walked by and the next thing you know she is running full speed towards us and gave my friend a bear hug. I couldn't resist so I threw my arm around her as well. She is the most down-to-earth, genuine person you could imagine. She thanked all of us, about 500 or so, and ran around the football field high-fiving everyone. Total class act. Kit Harington met him on the stage door just months before GOT's last season, so safe to say, he was on the top of his success. He came out, looked at the fans, said out loud alright, I'll sign first and photos after that. Somehow I am first on the line. We chat few lines, I get his autograph, and I ask if he would take a photo with me later, sure, because I am a polite northerner. He then walks through all the fans, signing and taking photos, and I am 101% sure that I just misunderstood the whole thing. I shall have taken a photo with him right away, no way he will come back to me. He is heading back to the stage door to get back inside, followed by security, then turns as he remembers me, comes back to me to have a photo with me. I thank him, he takes his leave, and just few steps before the door he turns around to say take care to me. Very kind man. This might not come as a surprise, but Amy Schumer is a big dick. I was walking behind her once and she abruptly stopped to take a picture of something on the street and I accidentally bumped into her. I got a whole lecture on watching where I was going like I was a child but with insults to my vision. I wear glasses. From that day on, I still can't stand her and her stolen jokes. She was at fault for stopping so quickly yet yelled at me for close to 10 minutes about how I need to do better. Duck you, Amy.